I'm Robin Bennett. I'm one of the co-founders of the Dog Gurus. Susan Briggs is over there. She's the other co-founder of the Dog Gurus. And our company, the Dog Gurus, helps pet care businesses launch, grow, and profit. So our goal is to keep dogs safe and help business owners actually be profitable and not burn out while they're running their business. So that's really our goal. We do that two ways. One is through consulting. We have consulting for business owners on all aspects of running and owning their business. And then we also have staff training programs to help train your staff and keep them energized and understanding how to keep the dog safe. So that's who we are. So we're glad you're here. I do see a few other people. Kristen from Maui joined us. So that's awesome. Hopefully it's not as late as when we were doing the master class for you, Kristen, or as early, whichever that was. Linda's also here from Arizona. So that's awesome. So we're going to talk about onboarding staff. I know for the pet industry, ever since COVID, we have had a lot of challenges with hiring staff. And obviously, prior to COVID, things seemed to be going pretty well. And people had moderate success hiring pretty easily and keeping staff engaged and keeping their staff full and being able to take all the dogs that they had wanting to come in. And then obviously, COVID happened. COVID caused a lot of pet care facilities to lay off their staff or furlough their staff, reduce their staff in some way. And then we were also excited when COVID started to die down a bit and we went back to business as usual. Most businesses within the pet industry became swamped with clients wanting services, but the staffing has changed a lot. So a lot of folks are having challenges with staffing, and we've done a couple of Facebook Lives on how to hire and retain staff. We're not going to spend a ton of time on hiring today, but if you're looking for that kind of information, definitely check out our YouTube channel because you'll be able to find some information there. But what we're going to talk about today is really how, when you find your staff, onboarding them and keeping them up to speed on how to keep things safe. And I will say onboarding is one of the requirements really to keeping a good staff. So a lot of people don't think a lot about onboarding. So we want to talk about what is your process, what does your process look like for that? So I think that's the introduction, Susan. I'll let you start us off.
I know I realized I hadn't really figured out what I was going to start us off with, but now I have. So you did a good job giving me time during your introduction. I think what we need to do, Robin, is clarify for everybody what we mean by onboarding, because that's kind of like the umbrella, and there's a lot of components under it. And so I really think I see, and you may not agree with me, but I think onboarding starts as soon as you've made the offer and they've accepted. It's from that moment on, all your communication and touch points through probably their first 90, 120 days to where you feel like they have the basic familiarity with their business, their role, and the basic training to do the responsibilities that they've been assigned. So there's a lot of things that fall under onboarding, which is the post-hire communication, what we may think of as orientation to the business, your values, your mission, purpose, and then how are you training them to learn their role. And the thing is, I feel like your onboarding has to be customized for every role you have within your business because the training will be different for every role. So that's the way I think of onboarding. I don't know what you want to.
I would actually agree with that. And I would back up to say the entire hiring process is critical. But I would say onboarding pretty much starts from the time you give them that offer and they accept. And now you basically have a new employee. Now they are either going to show up and be really good and engage and go through your training program, or they're going to ghost you and not show up. That's what we're hearing, is that we're getting a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm not going to show up. But I would say, have you ever thought about what that employee feels on their end based on everything Susan just said? How have you communicated to them that they're being hired? And then once you have hired them, do they even hear from you between that time and the next time they come in? What do they hear from you? Are they just hearing a lot about rules, regulations, policies, uniforms, and nothing really about getting to know them? Because I think that the employees today, I just feel like they've changed and they want to be, I think people have always wanted to be valued, but I think today's employee, that's probably more important than it was maybe 30, 40 years ago when was entering the workplace. Um, I was just making sure I was there to do my job. And I just think that's changed a little. Just the way people want to be treated, I think has changed a little. And I also think the biggest thing that's changed is people want to know how their job ties into a greater mission, and they're just not a warm body. I do feel like if you don't have a strong way of communicating with them, showing them you care, what kind of family situation do they have? What kind of dogs do they have? What kind of things do they like or don't like? I'm not saying you're going to find all that out within the first day you hire them, but those kinds of communications and those kinds of discussions should be happening. It should not just be all about, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And if you don't show up, we're going to punish you. And if you do this wrong, we're going to punish you. And which is a lot of communication that happens, I feel like, when people first start bringing new employees on. I also think there's a whole lot of negativity that might happen, especially if you've gone through a lot of scenarios where you have not had the right people at your business. And sometimes I think we unintentionally share a little too much of the negative with our new employees. And so being careful of that, like really, what are your conversations about with that new employee from the time you hire them to the time they come on board? So I think that's really critical. And then I think, do you want to talk a little bit about the first day? Because I know we've talked about that a lot, of what that should look like and maybe what a lot of people do instead.
Yeah, the first day is so important because that is the new hire's first impression of what they're getting themselves into. And you've got to think, for a lot of people, that's a very nervous and stressful situation. So you want to put them at ease, which means you need to be prepared and organized. And everybody in the company, especially anyone working the front desk, should know who's coming in and to expect them, their name, and how they should greet them and make them feel comfortable and what they need to do with them as soon as they arrive. So I would have a plan and then have backup plans just in case there's an emergency and somebody who is supposed to be doing something gets pulled away. Already have a backup plan. If you were working some of this, or your manager was, if they get pulled away or couldn't come in that day, who's going to step in? Because it's like meeting anybody. You only have one chance to make that really good first impression. So you want to be organized. And as Robin said, you want to make it about them, about the candidate, that you're happy that they're there. If you have signage and can put their name out there, you can welcome them to the team and let everybody know they're coming on board. And it needs to be more than just paperwork. The paperwork, if you can do the paperwork in advance through digital, that could be some of your positive communication and keeping them engaged with you between the offer and day one. But if they have to do paperwork when they arrive, set them up for success. If they need to bring in different forms of ID, make sure you tell them what the I-9 will accept so that they come prepared and do it. Let them know where to park. Can they bring a purse in or a bag? What should they wear? What kind of shoes? And you may want to explain why it's for their safety if they do some of those things. Or the first day, they may not be in with dogs, so it may not matter as much. But you want to make it a fun day about them. So you want to give them a tour again, even if they've seen the place once. For you guys, it's easy to get around your buildings, but if someone had a tour during an interview, don't assume they're going to remember where that was. Have a place for them to put their personal belongings to where they'll be safe. If you have lockers or whatever, have all that stuff ready for them. Have sign-ons ready for them. And then make sure that day one orientation includes an introduction to the company, your different services, your values, your mission. This is where, as Robin said, you can connect that dot to how their role helps fulfill your mission and your community for dogs and families. So you want it to really be about them. You can even talk about career path opportunities, professional certification that they can get. They won't remember it all and you'll probably repeat it, but I think you've got to make that day one all about them and look organized and prepared and happy to have them there.
Yeah, and I also think making sure that you are introducing them to the other staff members and making sure you're introducing them to some of the clients too. If you're out in the lobby and a new client comes in, I would take the time to say, "Oh, Mrs. So and so, Julie or whoever that's just starting with us and she's going to be working in whatever position she's working in," and just make them feel like they're part of the team. Same thing with posting their introduction on Facebook. And I know a lot of people don't want to do that. I know a lot of people are like, I ain't posting anything. It's, oh, see if their person even comes back after lunch kind of thing. But I feel like then you're setting a negative tone for that person. And so I would just say act and treat them as if they are going to come back. Will they always come back? Will it always work out? No. There are going to be times when maybe you didn't select the best person for your team, but you still want to make them feel comfortable, make them feel part of a team. And belonging, the idea of belonging is one of the number one needs from people. So when you start getting them to feel like they do belong there, and that can start as soon as they get hired through the communication you do prior to them coming in, and then all the communication you do with them when they come in, that's going to help them to see, okay, this is a team effort. I'm here for a purpose. I really want to do this. And as Susan said, really talking to them about the education you're going to provide them and the valuable information that they're going to get from working with you, the friends they're going to make, the leadership they might learn, whatever it is, the education, definitely whatever staff training you're going to provide to them. All of that you need to make sure they understand. So just really making them feel part of the team. And I have literally been to places, this was outside the pet industry, but I won't name the place because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I have literally been to places where new employees arrive and I've had to take them up to their office. And so be like, oh, hey, here's Robin. She's going to take you to your office. I've literally walked these people to their office, and on the office is like the old person's name still. And then I'm like in this awkward position because really I'm just like taking them to the office. I'm not actually part of the onboarding process, but now I'm in this awkward position of being like, oh, yeah, I'm sure they're going to change the name on the door soon because like that person's not here anymore. Like it's very awkward. So, same thing, like, don't have them come in and you're just trying to rip down all the old stuff and then clear out a locker for them at the last second and be like, oh yeah, I guess that person that we fired didn't take all their stuff, like, here, but you can use this. It's just things like that really are going to make an impact, good or bad, on that new staff member. So I definitely think that all of that's critical. And then just in terms of making sure that you have a staff training program, and Susan mentioned a minute ago that whole onboarding process. I think a lot of people think of onboarding as like the first week, and that's definitely
Oh,
part of it. But if you think about how long does it take somebody, let's just say you're going to have someone that's going to do I'll just start easy. Let's say it's somebody that's just going to do lodging. How long do you think it would take somebody to learn everything they need to know about lodging? Is it going to be more than a week? I would assume so. And that's where you have to say onboarding is that whole initial staff training time to where that person's getting up to speed enough to where they are now able to do everything without supervision, without a lot of oversight, because obviously you're going to be providing coaching and training to them initially. But how long does it take for them to get trained enough to be on their own, reliable, dependable, consistent? That's going to be most of the time a couple of months. So you have to map out that whole training process for all those months. It doesn't mean every day is going to be like day one. Obviously, they're going to get into a routine, but they're not going to learn everything in a week. And I feel like a lot of times that's the expectation. We as business owners or GMs get really frustrated really fast when you're telling somebody the same thing the third time. You're like, gosh, why aren't they learning it already?
yeah.
We have to lower that expectation and really build out a training plan that takes into consideration what is it they need to learn? How are we teaching it to them? And then how are they grasping that? And are we actually evaluating to see if they learned what we taught them in the first place? Or are you just vomiting on top of them every single thing and hoping they'll retain it all? Because that's not going to work.
Yeah, and I like to think about when you're training that, okay, you're introducing a concept and it could be knowledge or skill. There's a big difference between being introduced to something and what I would call mastery, which is what you said, Robin. They can do it on their own without guidance or checking up on them or QC. And think about the last thing you went and learned how to do. How long did it take you from introduction to mastery? There's very few things that are so simple that you get it within the first time it's been presented. And then think about the volume of things that you're putting on them. So I think you have to step back, think about knowledge and skills and the difference between introduction and mastery. And to get to mastery, you need coaching and feedback along the way.
Yeah, and I think if you haven't ever sat down and created that kind of a training program, it does take some time to do, but your staff can help you. You pretty much know what needs to happen in order for the dogs to be taken care of and the right type of care quality. But you do have to break it down, but based on what Susan just said, the skills that are needed and the knowledge that are needed. Maybe it's a little bit of each of those depending on the area. But we also would say break it down by role, because your daycare, and maybe you're going to eventually cross train everybody. That's fine. We actually encourage cross training, but you still have to start with what does each role need. The fact that you're even cross training assumes you have different roles with different educational components to them. So you have to map out each role and decide for that particular role, what does the person need to know, both skills and knowledge. And I would
And the other,
go ahead, Susan.
I love cross training, but let them master the first role before you start cross training them for another role, because people are just going to be overwhelmed and I don't want to do this. They're expecting too much too fast.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. Because if you're going to cross train, it does assume that they've already been trained. Otherwise, again, you're just throwing stuff at them too hard and too fast. So the roles that we typically look at, and this is actually how Pet Cougar College is set up for those of you that are using that or are interested in that. We have a lodging counselor role, which obviously those individuals taking care of the dogs who are lodging overnight and staying with you in boarding enclosures. We have a daycare counselor role, which is obviously the people who are operating the daycare. They need a totally different group of skills because now they're managing dogs off leash. We have a client care counselor role, which is that person who's talking to the clients, calling people back, sitting in the lobby, maybe when people are coming in, answering questions, basically all that front facing person, whether that's one of your team members, or maybe you hire someone specific for that role, like a reservation specialist. And then we have actually an enrichment counselor role. So that for us, we look at enrichment counselors as a promotion up from a daycare counselor. An enrichment counselor is someone who knows how to manage the dogs off leash, but now they also know the skills to actually do enrichment activities in smaller groups. So that's an additional role as well. Those are the main ones I think you're going to find. If you have grooming, you might have that kind of a role for a groomer. If you have bathing, you might have a specific bathing role. If you do pet sitting or dog walking, you might have those particular roles. And for what we teach, most of it is obviously based on dogs because that's most of what we're working with. But if you have to remember, if you have a cattery, you're going to have specific skills and knowledge that pertain to the cats and what's important to them. If you're dog walking or pet sitting and you're taking other animals, you have to have skills and knowledge for those other animals. Do you know when the lizard needs medical attention? Because I don't.
Or is the rat
Um,
stressed?
yeah. Do you know what stress looks like in a gerbil?
Yeah.
Because I don't. But anyway, all of those, you have to map all that out before you expect mastery. Because again, the other thing that I most often see in a pet care facility is we sometimes hold people accountable to something that's not documented at all,
Yeah.
which now how does the person even know what he or she is working towards? At least, and this is one of the reasons we're such big proponents of standard operating procedures, is whether you have a video or written documentation that says, here's what it looks like to properly clean a lodging enclosure, or here's what it looks like to properly clean the floor at the end of the day. And it's written down. What does it look like? How do you do it? How long should it take? Or it's a video that has that information. Now, if the person is not doing it well, at least you can go back to say, let's refresh ourselves with the actual documentation or video of how to do this and how long it should take and what it should look like. Let's see where maybe there's gaps that we can help you to improve. When there's no standard, this is where I see a ton of people frustrate their employees. Is they just are like, you're not doing that one, so said I should do it like this, and now another person says I should do it like that, and everybody has their own like vision of what it looks like. If you don't have the final answer for that person, they're going to get frustrated. And
Yeah.
frustration will cause a higher turnover rate. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah, people have very low tolerance for living in frustration and stress right now. They'll just not come back and not tell you why. So you've got to set your business up to be the place that will onboard, and you will stand out in the employment market if you do all these things. And yeah, it takes some investment of time and planning and organization, but it's such, just think about the return if you can lower your turnover and keep the people you hire, or keep the people you have. So I think your staff management system and this onboarding process is where I would be prioritizing my time. If you don't have all these things set up, it will save you time down the road, and will also, I think, create a happier functioning team.
So I'm going to talk about a couple of things. One is quiet quitting. Jamie Popper, who's a friend of ours over at Blue Nine Pet Products, she had posted this. I just posted the link to it, but she posted a link to an article. And the title of the article is Quiet Quitting is About Bad Bosses, Not Bad Employees. And we've heard most of the within the pet industry, we've talked to tons of people who are like, the millennials these days, or Gen Z or Gen X or whatever it is, they're not good. They don't have a good work ethic, and they ghost us all the time, and they don't show up, and they suck. Basically, that's the message, is that they suck. And Susan and I, for a long time, have said, from whatever generation you're dealing with, yes, generations all differ. I will admit that my generation, I do feel like we just did the job because it was the job. We really didn't ask a lot of questions. We just showed up and did the work. And that's great. That is not today's generation, like it or not. That is just not today's generation. They have more questions, they ask more, they want that link to the purpose. And what a lot of people look at as not a good work ethic maybe is something more than not a good work ethic. And that's the article talks a lot about the fact that it really comes down to how you're managing those people and what you're doing to make sure that you're meeting them where they are, showing them that they have a purpose, and you're helping them to grow as a person and as an employee. And I'm putting the last line of the article, but it says it's easy to place the blame for quiet quitting on lazy or unmotivated workers, but instead this research is telling us to look within and recognize that individuals want to give their energy, creativity, time, and enthusiasm to the organizations and leaders that deserve it. So, like it or not, we can all sit around and complain that today's workers are different from our generations. And mostly you're going to do that if you're older, like, because they just are, they're different. But I would tell people, if you're not willing to look at yourself and make changes, then it's that whole, like, how's that working for you? If you have a continual revolving door, then there might be some element of truth in something that you might need to change. And my example of this, I use this example all the time. I came into the pet industry from the Marine Corps, and this was 20 some years ago. I went through a lot of employees, and I didn't think it was my fault. At that point, I was saying, these employees, they are horrible. They cry all the time, and I just saw that they just don't do a very good job. And turns out it was my leadership style. Turns out if you're in the Marine Corps, leadership style is not very good for the pet industry. And so I faced the fact, and I had an employee that came up to me one day and was like, Robin, man, you're like making people cry all the time. And I, of course, was like, what do you mean? I'm not mean. I'm like this nice person. I just told him I needed him to do some work. And but it was coming across in not such a great way. And so I had to change a lot about my leadership style with my staff. And I ended up with a really good staff. Some of the same employees that I complained about turned out to be some of my best employees once I changed. And so I would just say, for everybody, there is an element of honesty, like a good holding that mirror up to yourself to see where maybe you could change things to possibly make a difference in that revolving door of employees.
Yeah, it's hard, but it's necessary in today's environment, because people are just not going to work for leaders that they don't like or don't respect. And so You can also have you can have a title and there'll be a leadership vacuum. Just like we talk about, there can be a person physically in with a group of dogs, but it doesn't mean they're actually leading them and keeping the play group safe and fun. So you as a leader need to be doing the same thing. It's about that consistency, the accountability, but also being there to listen and engage with employees, coach, help, ask if they need resources. Do they need retraining? Expect to retrain and repeat yourself. That's just part of learning. And really, a big part of this onboarding process is that teacher coach role, to where you are going to be repeating yourself. Set your expectations up realistically and work with your other team members and remind them what it was like when they came on, so that they also have patience when people are learning, because you do a large part of that being a leader, but the rest of the team need to support that as well, and remind them if they don't help and support these new people till they get to mastery, then we're going to have more turnover and they're going to have to work harder again. And so I think it benefits everybody to have patience and be realistic about what it takes to learn the role. There's a lot of details in pet care, and so there is a lot to learn.
Yeah, and I'm putting a link for our staff training resources. If you need resources for your team, I put a link there. We do have a couple of training programs. Knowing Dogs is one of our longest lasting programs. It's been around for years, and that teaches canine body language. And then Pet Guru College, which includes Knowing Dogs, has all of those roles built out with an entire onboarding system. So again, it's from the day they start to 2 to 3 months later, depending on the role, all the training they need. And obviously, the training that we are providing through Pet Guru College is needs to be supplemented with your own SOPs. Like, we teach about what is cleaning and disinfecting and sanitizing. What do those mean? What do those look like? But obviously, you're going to have to teach them based on your equipment and your cleaning solutions how the cleaning actually works. So it's meant to go alongside with your own SOPs to help to get those folks trained. But I will say two things that came up yesterday, because I know we're running a little over time now. One is that Anna just mentioned, Anna is one of our coaches. She's also been in Profit Network, one of our programs, for quite a while. She's been in business for a very long time. She owns Fieldstone Animal in Maryland. But she was talking about, but she's building out her staff training, continuing education. So she went into the library. Well, the library is an online database of just tons and tons of resources that it's included with both Knowing Dogs and Pet Guru College. And every month we add a lunch and learn to the library. She went in and printed every single lunch and learn that we have, which I should have asked her how many that was now, because I'm sure it's in the 30s, 40s or something.
Yeah.
But she was putting together because she does staff training, continuing education twice a month. And she was putting together like an annual plan for that. Because she was like, it's a no brainer. I'm going to have to teach these twice a year, at least each one, just to hit new staffing. And then I'm just going to build it out. So I have it every year. It'll be just the same. Like in January, we're going to touch on this. And in February, we're going to touch on this. I thought it was a really good idea. And goes to that whole expect to retrain your people, expect to remind them, expect to work with them. But the other thing that she talked about doing, which I thought was brilliant, is all of her staff meetings now with her employees include an element of self-care. So she's talking to her employees about care of their bodies, care of their minds, mental health care, and she's helping them to learn coping skills. Because what she found was the people often hit a roadblock and they don't have coping skills and they just quit because they don't know what else to do. Which I've never thought about that. I have said that all the time. I'm like, I don't know. It feels like even my kids sometimes I'm like, I don't know that they have as strong a coping skills as I feel like I had when I was their age. And I feel like that is true for some of the younger, and by younger, 30 and below. So 30 is really not that young, but I do sometimes wonder about that. So she said, yeah, she's starting to incorporate that to where if this happens and you're feeling stressed out and overwhelmed, what are your options? One of them is to quit, but there's probably a whole lot of other options that can help you get through that roadblock. So I thought that was a really cool idea too.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing, Robin, I know when we posted this, we talked about getting staff on for holidays, and we haven't mentioned that. Now is the time to start planning for how many staff members you want to bring on and have for your holiday peak periods. And if they're part-timers that are coming back, getting confirmation from them now that they're going to be back, and then planning some training for that. And I think we do have a seasonal counselor role as part of Pet Guru College, which is a much shorter training time period. But if you know that you're already short staffed, you've got to start working on changing, getting up to full staff before the holidays. And then how do you get those other people onboarded and trained? And you can't wait until November.
Yeah, and the other thing I would be starting to do now, if you haven't started already, is calling to get reservations for those peak periods. So either reminding people who have already booked with you that they still have that reservation, make sure they still want it, but also if you're not full yet, I would be going back to past clients that maybe were there at the holidays last Thanksgiving or last Christmas and calling them to say, hey, do you want to come back? For some people, you have a membership that gives priority reservations to members. I would be calling those members now to book those reservations. And then once you email or contact those select people that you want to have first chance to talk to, then I would be emailing reminders to everybody or posting it on social media, make your reservations now, because that's going to give you a better idea of making sure that you have the right staff, because you're going to be booked or you have a wait list or whatever. You have to get X number of staff in there. Or if you don't feel like you're going to be able to get up to speed on what staff you need to know how many reservations you can take if you have to limit them. But hopefully if you're starting now, because it's the beginning of September, you're going to have enough time to get those people in and set those expectations for what that holiday period is going to look like, because you want to make sure that you're giving everybody an opportunity to spend some holiday time at home, but at the same time, you have to cover the time that your animals need to be taken care of. So definitely, I know it seems like we just got done with summer and it seems too early to talk about the holidays, but this is the time to do it. This is the time for everything about the holidays, including making plans for promotions, making plans for training, making all those holiday plans. I would be starting to do now. All right. Anything else you want to talk about?
Now, I think we could go on, but I think we've hit the main high points. I think we have enough to look at and work on.
Yeah, hopefully this helps everybody. If you have any questions, I'm typing one more thing before we go. So this is your chance to type a question if you have any. But if you're not in our Grow Your Pet Care Facebook group, I'm typing really quick. We would love for you to join us over there. We do have a free Facebook group, and I put the link in the comments. Anybody can join. We have about 2,500 people in there right now, all kinds of pet care facility owners, people getting ready to open, people that have been in business for a really long time, some GMs, some staff members. So anybody can be in there, and it's a great area to ask questions, discuss topics that might be of interest. We also have had that group for quite a long time, so you can search in the group, and there's a huge database of like answers to questions that people ask commonly. So hopefully that will help you as well. Our only two rules are you can't sell things and you have to be nice. So we kick you out if you're mean or you sell things. But otherwise, it's a really great opportunity to learn from others and help each other. So Kristen had a quick question. Are there any job posting templates available?
I think there may be some in growth intensive, but I would be going out and looking at the ones that catch your eye that are being posted. And this is where a lot of our folks like to use Applicant Pro, and Applicant Pro helps in writing those. Oh, the Andrea's book goes through that. Hi, Andrea Hoffer was at our event in April, and she's a recruiting and hiring expert. And so it would be worth investing in her book for samples on that. But the key thing is you have to, again, market the position as to what's in it for the candidate versus all your rules and everything you expect. That's the way we used to post when I got into the pet industry way back when. That didn't work. If you're have somebody else read your ad and say, highlight everything that comes across to you as negative, and you got to take all that out.
Yeah, which is a big shift for those of us that have been in the pet industry. We used to have big ads going, it's going to be really hard work and you're going to have to pick up poop. And it's a lot of negatives. But now, first of all, the starting point is I would make sure you have job descriptions for every role, which we do have job descriptions in Growth Intensive. So I know Kristen's in that program, so you can find them there. But then you want to really map out what benefits does someone get from working in your business. and why would they want to work with your business, that you have a fun culture and you do things together and it's a sense of belonging and all the dogs you take care of, like whatever it is for your business that makes your business a unique, great place to work. And I would encourage you to go look at job descriptions that are being done by places like Starbucks, places like Amazon, places, whatever, the big, and see that's how their job descriptions are written. It's all about what they're going to provide to you when you come and work with them. And we have to take that mindset now for the pet industry because the landscape has just changed for hiring. I put the book in there, Hire Hire. It's by Andrea Hoffer. I did put the name of her book um, that you can get to. Andrea Hoffer did speak at our conference in April, and she has lots of great ideas on how to hire well, for not specific to the pet industry, but just in general. That's what her company does. So I would check that out as well. And then Kristen said, do you think I can hire part-time and shift to full-time? I had people that started at part-time and then eventually wanted full-time work. It depends on, that's a conversation. I wouldn't necessarily put that in the job ad. I would put probably it's a part-time position, full-time positions are available or something like that. I wouldn't necessarily put an expectation that they have to turn into full-time, but you're going to get some people, like you might get college kids at the holidays that might want full time during the holidays, but then they're going to leave and not come back maybe till the summer. And then you might get other people that once they get done with school, now they are looking for something a little bit longer term. So I think it just depends. I don't know if Susan, if you have any thoughts on that.
I think we've gotten some feedback from some of our members that they're having more success hiring part-time hours versus full-time hours, that there's a lot of people that don't want 40 hours a week. So 28, 24 to 32. And if you have two of those, you have more availability than a full-time. But I think you can definitely talk to people that you've got flexibility on that. Start part-time and these are the hours, and then just ask them, are they willing, after they've been there a while, do they want more hours? If they do, great. If not, then okay, we may need to add another part-time position to get the work done. But I think having flexibility with part-time work is a hiring advantage right now too.
Yeah, that we are seeing that a lot more, part-time positions. And then Kristen said, how much do you raise wages after training is?
That's up to you. I would want to be competitive to keep people there. I think it depends on what you brought them in at. And then I think you may have to experiment with it, or maybe other people could share what has worked for them in general.
Yeah, I think honestly, I do think starting them out at some introductory rate is nice, but the challenge with that is when I had my business, I started people out at minimum wage, and no, very few people are starting people out at minimum wage anymore. In some states, minimum wage is going up as well. So a lot of people are starting their folks out at $15, $16 an hour. So then to guarantee a raise after training, I don't think it's unreasonable, but and I would have milestones for them to reach, training, finishing training being one of them, obviously. But I also would not rule out other ways that you could reward them. And we've seen a lot of people that reward the completion of training. They get a certain color shirt, or they get a certain type of leash that they get to carry around, or they get something on Facebook. So don't necessarily rule out those. It might be that you're just going to raise 25 cents, 50 cents, something kind of small, but you do have to figure out how, if you can afford all that, and all that goes into forecasting your pay and how many employees you have and all of that kind of thing. But there's other ways to reward people for some of those milestones as well.